Okay, after the rather infelicitous first showing of Dragon Age in terms of its cinematic trailer, I think we're all in need of a bit of a palate cleanser. And for me, perhaps not for everybody, I have to say the Avowed trailer was that palate cleanser. I liked it overall. Was it perfect? No. But I think we first need to understand what they're trying to achieve with this trailer and what they're trying to achieve with Avowed in general. This was a story trailer, but with gameplay elements, so that's all in-game footage. And we have to understand that what Obsidian is trying to do is basically bring the world of Pillars of Eternity, Eora, to the masses in some sense. Because the first game, Pillars of Eternity, sold okay, but it was very, very niche, a kind of dark, brooding, isometric CRPG that is not going to touch most people. And Deadfire, although it initially didn't do well, eventually broke even. I believe it even sold well long-term, was still less broody, less dark, but nonetheless an isometric CRPG. And these games, as I've said so many times, despite that being my favorite genre, do not sell well, relatively speaking. They do not have broad appeal. So the idea behind Avowed is, look guys, this is still Eora. This is this world with all the cool stuff in it, all the lore, the gods, the magic, but it looks different. Now, I don't per se have anything against action RPGs. I think they're fine. And if it's done right, it can still be a very good game. So that's my sense of what Avowed is overall. It is a transposition of the content of the Pillars of Eternity universe to a different medium, the action RPG, which, as I've just said, could still be very fun. Now, for a lot of veterans, that's going to turn them off, and they're not willing to give it a chance, and I totally get that. It's not my place to tell you what you should or shouldn't play. It's your wallet, after all. But for me, I'm actually looking forward to this, especially after the disaster of the Dragon Age reveal trailer. I have always loved the Pillars of Eternity universe. It's one of my favorite ones. I love the lore. I love the design. And to be able to experience that yet again is a blessing, to be honest. Because I think ultimately that should be our real concern as fans of the Pillars of Eternity universe. Namely, will there be continuity of lore? Well, actually, based on everything we can see in this trailer and in previous trailers, yes. There are multiple instances in this trailer of lore from the old games and continuity in terms of factions and gods. Not to mention, of course, enemies. And you can see Adra, and you can see a lot of spells that are very reminiscent of the Pillars of Eternity games. And so ultimately, I think this is the most important element. Now, I think what happened was that they originally had a bigger budget, which is why in 2018 we got this kind of epic trailer, and the budget was massively downsized. But that's okay. I think you can do a lot with a AA game, and it is hardly the end of the world. And there are a number of things that we can see in this trailer that I think are indicative of this continuity of lore. You have very clear signs of classic Pillars of Eternity heraldry. In the very beginning, you can see that the envoy is standing in the court of the Emperor Vadir. Later on, and this is an allusion to the original trailer, you can see the heraldry of the cult of Boudica. You remember how in the original trailer there was a siege scene, and you could see various banners, and that banner, of course, was the symbol of Boudica, the goddess of justice, rulership, as well as contracts and many other things. Now, what's interesting about this trailer is that it is a story trailer, and we see characters that are probably very important to the story. Probably the most interesting one is this masked figure, who seems to be, or most certainly, an agent of Boudica. Now, she has glowing eyes of fire, which could indicate that she is a fire god-like, or it could be, maybe, very unlikely, but maybe a Boudican godlike. We have no idea what a Boudican godlike would look like, but presumably all the gods have godlike, we just haven't seen them so far. But regardless, she's wearing the trappings of some kind of priest or priestess. You can tell by her tone, which is not identical to the voice of the voice actress who does Boudica in Pillars of Eternity 2, but it's very similar. You can tell by the tone that she means business, and that her interest, in the context of the Living Lands, is conquest. She tells you as much. There's this phenomenon called the Dream Plague, which is obviously the main plot device in this game. She tells us to tame the chaos that plagues the Living Lands. Of course, she's referring to the Dream Plague, but that is the statement of a conqueror, which is very reminiscent of a goddess such as Boudica, who's interested in rulership and rulership typically takes place in an urban context. And so in some ways, and many interpretations, Boudica is sort of a goddess of civilization. There are siege machines, she's wielding or holding a banner of Boudica herself, she's kicking down a dwarf, and she is primarily interested in conquest. And we also see in this context the burning banner of the Valiant Republics, which tells us that the Boudican faction in this game is almost certainly at odds with them, and probably with a lot of other factions, if not all of them, if I had to guess. Now, contrasting the story with what the Boudican agent wants you to do is this other character, this companion of yours. We know that she's a companion. She's probably an ocean folk human being based on her appearance. Well, contrasting this arc of the story, which is an arc of conquest, an arc of violence, an arc of being evil, basically, you have the alternative being presented to you in the context of this trailer, coming from this companion of yours, who is enjoining you, encouraging you to become a guardian of nature, a protector of the living lands. She's telling you that no, you're missing out on the bigger picture here. You have to go a different route. So if I had to hazard a guess, there's sort of probably 3 general directions this story can take as a protagonist. 1, the basic milquetoast, you follow the orders of the Emperor Vadir, and you simply get rid of the Dream Plague. 2, you go down the route of conquest, and you ally yourself with the Woodicans. Or 3, you decide to go down a more living in harmony with nature route, where you become a hero to the living lands and the people who live there. Which doesn't sound that bad to me, to be perfectly honest. Now beyond this, the big question on the minds of probably everyone who's a fan of the Pillars of Eternity universe is, does this take place after what happened in Deadfire? After the first 2 games? And I think the answer to that is an unequivocal yes. This is a sequel, if you will, of sorts, to those games. I plan on making an entirely separate video on this, but there are many indications in this trailer and others that the things we can see in the visuals are tied to events that took place in Deadfire. So if I had to hazard a guess, and this is pure speculation, one of the reasons why the Boudican faction is so prominent is because of what Eothas did to the wheel. And so she's probably scrambling for power as a result of that. But indeed there are other indications of that related to the mushrooms, the fungus, and so on. But regardless, if you were worried that this would have nothing to do with Eora or Pillars of Eternity, I think there is an abundance of evidence that suggests otherwise. There will be lore and world continuity, and thank the gods for that. Beyond that, to be perfectly honest, I think the combat looks pretty fun. Obviously, it's very different from a real-time with pause or tactical CRPG, but that's not what this game is. We've known that for a while. The spells look really cool. A lot of the magic resembles that of Pillars of Eternity. There are 1 or 2 spells in this trailer you can see. One of them looks like Minoleta's missiles, which is a version of magic missile in the context of the Pillars of Eternity universe that the companion uses. And there's another instance of the envoy casting a spell with a grimoire, which is called Grimoire Slam, as well as many other things, such as the dual wielding of weapons, firearms, using wands. Finally, we got to see at least what's probably the 3rd reveal of a companion in this trailer, who looks like a dwarf. If you look at the trailer on the left side in one of the scenes, you can definitely see a stout-looking dwarf, probably a mountain dwarf, standing next to the Amoa companion that we already knew about. So all in all, I have to say, I'm very much looking forward to Avowed. I think it is probably my #1 game for this year, and obviously I have a certain bias here because I'm very attached to the world and universe of Pillars of Eternity. The real question is, because I think the diehard Pillars fans are going to get this and play this regardless, is will this appeal to the masses, people with no connection to Pillars of Eternity? And there I have my doubts. Anyway, do let me know what you think in the comment section. Are you a fan of Pillars of Eternity? Are you not? Let me know. And as always, thank you for tuning in. If you like my content, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel and be much appreciated. Until next time, take care.